we are about to have the panel, and we are enormously excited to have experts from across Pennsylvania who are going to share about remote supports. And remote supports are really, really critical because they are helping overcome so many of the barriers that we have, but also that they're helping people increase their independence and self-determination. And that's what we're about. So with that, we want to bring on screen, and Nathan is going to be, Nathan Gerhard is with Keystone, and is going to be the moderator, and we have Susan Jackson and Christina Lawley from SafeInHome that we are just appreciative of coming and being with us, and Jason Ray from Simply Home as the executive director and founder, Gregg Kelinson from KenCrest, and Nathan. So if we can get all of them on our panel on screen. Nathan, let's bring on Nathan and to do the introductions to our panel. Nathan?
All right. Good morning, Mark. Thank you for that, and welcome everyone. I hope you are enjoying your summit thus far and that you got a lot out of the first breakout sessions. I'm looking forward to what's coming in the second breakout session. So as Mark said, we're going to be spending the next couple minutes with you talking about remote supports and how our different organizations view them, use them, and what we've been seeing as the positive result for the people who choose our services. So Mark already covered the introductions for everybody, and because we have a limited time, what we're going to be doing is breaking out into about 8-minute sessions with the different presenters, and I will be monitoring the chat. We're trying to leave about 2 minutes at the end of each presentation to be able to have those specific panelists answer your questions. If all goes well, we'll have a little bit of time at the end too for any general questions that you guys have. So starting off, our panel will be Christina and Susan from SafeInHome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having Christina and I here today to present to you regarding remote supports. We are from SafeInHome. Christina is our PA district manager here at SafeInHome, and I am one of the account executives with SafeInHome from the Northeast and Central PA. So we appreciate your time, and we would love to share some information just about what remote supports is. SafeInHome is a PA-approved provider of remote supports through ODP as a distinct service. Assistive technology and remote supports are separate services. And so a little bit about what remote supports are. We utilize remote supports to empower people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to live their lives independently or as independently as possible in their own homes and communities using remote support staff that are off-site through a variety of integrated technologies. And we use those technologies to help individuals achieve their goals, live their healthiest and safest lives, and the lives that they really choose to live. And that's really the goal of remote supports, is to support people in living the lives that they want to live to the best of their ability and as independently as possible. So remote supports offers a variety of solutions for various needs for individuals. And this can include anything from seizure management to medication management, transitioning, whether it be transitioning from youth, from children's type services over into adult type services, as well as transitioning from perhaps a residential setting into a community home in your own apartment, or living with family members that as they age, you're transitioning into, independent living setting. So any type of transitioning throughout the lifespan really can be supported through remote supports and assistive technology. Visitor safety, we often work with individuals who are looking to keep themselves and their loved ones safe when they're home alone, particularly when they're learning to expand independence, or when they're having new opportunities to utilize independence and alone time in the community at home, things like that. Kitchen safety, to promote independence in the kitchen with meal preparation and safety in mind, and also skill development and learning to do things independently to meet your individualized goals. And community support for individuals, learning to navigate the community, learning to travel independently, utilizing public transportation. We know that that individuals now that are young people that are coming into services, into the adult services from the children's systems and from school, are extremely tech savvy. So that has proven to be a very valuable resource for remote supports and for individuals that are young and transitioning. But oftentimes our technology is also driven to support individuals with a variety of skills and abilities. So, we're working with individuals that have not had experience or a ton of exposure to technology, but also individuals who are very fluent and have tons of skills in that area. And all of our solutions are individualized. They're customized to the individual's goals, their needs, and then, recommendations are made based on that person's goals and what they would like to achieve through the use of remote supports and assistive technology. Where do you want to be in your life is the question that we have. Where can we provide support for you? And the beauty of remote supports through SafeInHome is that we're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're connected to remote supports at the touch of a button in many instances, and there are no call-offs, there's no scheduling conflicts, holidays, weekends, overnight, and providing respite, a lot of times solutions for individuals, families that are experiencing caregiver burnout, staffing shortages, things like that. So we work in conjunction with a lot of supports. We also, some advantages of remote support services, personalized service and support. Again, self-direction is key here. Giving people the opportunity to have new experiences, to have the freedom and privacy of selecting the kinds of services and supports they want and having that available to them 24 hours a day. Skill building support, allowing people to have new experiences, to build the skills that they have, to do things independently, and that comes too with, the dignity of risk and having opportunities to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and continue on. Independent living transitions, that again is something that we often support and that we work really hard to support individuals in achieving those goals. So if a person wants to live on their own or they want to live more independently with the supports that they already have, remote supports is also a great way to provide that additional support. Staff plus technology. This is one of the things that people talk about often when we hear about remote supports is, I don't want to give up my staff, or I still need people to do certain things with me or for me. And that's something that we recognize here at SafeInHome, and that, as a service, remote supports recognizes. Remote supports can provide opportunities for individuals to have that level of independence that they're looking for, to remain healthy and safe when they're alone, and also provide supports to fill the gaps around staffing and or natural supports. And that's something that we often work with providers for, is how can we help support the individual in the absence of natural and or paid caregivers and supporters. And then peace of mind, knowing that someone is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays, weekends, snowstorms, those things don't affect remote supports. So, peace of mind of knowing that if your needs change, we can change the service to customize that to what your needs are. Perhaps you're getting reminders in the morning for medication management, and you have someone reminding you, and in 6 months or a year, you no longer need that support. We can take that part of the service away and customize it to another reminder if necessary, or just remove it altogether. It really is customizable and built to support the individual's goals and skill building. And then, it can evolve with the individual skills. Support service options. Christina's going to take it away.
Great. Thank you, Susan. So again, just to reiterate, remote supports is a support service option that works in conjunction with your traditional support services, your in-home support staff, along with the remote support services. And think about remote support services as the off-site support staff. First and foremost, whether an individual is living at home with their parents, living with their roommates, or even in a provider setting, remote supports will offer the individual greater freedom and privacy. It's really the mechanism that fulfills on the promise of the hard-fought battle that we went through with the ADA, followed by the Homestead decision and finally compliance with the HCBS settings rule for person-centered planning and services. So again, the support services is supporting the individuals we serve with the skills they need to navigate through life, such as their decision-making skills, self-advocacy, Again, medication management. Our services are covered by the Medicaid waiver. So we have here, Susan, if you could move on to the next slide. So we wanted to illustrate here, what we're looking at. The adults, the support services are available throughout the Commonwealth. And again, in addition to the traditional support services, these are approved and viable means of support within the ADA community. So, every state is facing, a workforce shortage. This started in 2019 with over 40% of the DSPs left working in our industry. So this gives us an option to provide support in a different way. It is funded through all of the IDD waivers, in addition to private pay and the ABLE funds. So when we're looking at the cost comparison, in-home and community service, you're looking at $41.12 an hour. Companion service could be $30.48 an hour. For remote supports, you're looking at $6.88 an hour. So it really is a cost-effective way of providing that service to the individuals, that need our services. And then finally, one of the things that Susan and I wanted to end with, we wanted to really talk about just some of the myths that we hear, whether it's through support coordinators or families and clients that we work with. One of the first myths is, remote supports is surveillance. When actually the fact is cameras are very rarely used and not required to provide remote support services. They can be used if desired, but they're never on continuously or monitored unless requested. One of the second myths that we hear again is it's only available to individuals that are living alone. So again, the fact is the remote supports can accommodate, any living situation. Again, whether the individual is living with their parents, living with a roommate, or again, living on their own. Third, that remote supports will replace workers with technology. And this is very important to keep in mind. Remote supports has yet to replace one DSP with our remote support staff. What we do is we fill in those gaps, whether that gap is, when the DSP leaves for the day and mom comes home 2 hours later, or whether it's when there's call-offs or overnight support. Again, we are not replacing any of the DSPs. We are simply filling in those gaps. And our final two myths we wanted to cover, again, that next slide, Susan. Oh, okay. I guess we're not able to go on to the next slide. Okay. So, one of the final
things. It is the next one, isn't it?
Sorry.
You should be able to see the next one.
Yeah. So, again, services are available in partnership with providers. We have providers in Allegheny County, Erie County, also out in the Philadelphia area. So we can work with provider agencies. One myth is our staff is untrained. Our remote support staff is very highly trained in the behavioral support techniques, and they are just working with the individuals on supports and services through SafeInHome. So I always like to say, their next call isn't going to be the psychic network or QVC. And finally, remote support staff or in-home staff, you have to pick one. We must reiterate again, this is not an all or nothing situation. An individual can have a combination of in-home supports along with the remote support services. So here's our contact information. We would recommend that, any individual, family member, support coordinator, reach out to us if they have any questions or anything that they would like to discuss concerning remote supports and assistive technology services offered by SafeInHome.
All right. Thank you, ladies. There was one question in the chat. It was, are these cost estimates built on PA funding structure? And I believe that's going back to your slide with the cost of in-home services versus remote supports.
Correct. We do a consultation with each individual based on, again, their needs, goals, desired outcomes, and challenges. And then we provide a very detailed proposal, including what the cost is for the leasing of the equipment and remote support services. We break that down to the units and the cost for the individual. We do a lot of that legwork for the support coordinators. But again, all for the Pennsylvania IDD waivers would cover the supports and services. We do have a small percentage of individuals that utilize base funding, private pay, and again, the ABLE funds.
All right. So because of our time, there is another question in the chat. Christina and Susan, if you can take a look at that and you could respond on there. as well as if you wanted to put your contact information in the chat for everybody, that would be good too. So next up, we have Jason Ray from SafeInHome.
And I was just saying, great job to the SafeInHome team. You actually helped me in the introduction to part of my presentation, doing a great job of explaining what remote support is. So I'm not going to rehash a lot of that. One thing that I did want to do is just really talk about the difference in technology and remote support. So when we talk about this idea of assistive or enabling technology, the impact of technology really is to focus on how we can create an independence where someone lives, works, and plays. And we're going to focus primarily on a residential application today because that's what we do at SafeInHome. But the other thing I wanted to reiterate is the fact that remote support is direct support. It's just provided in a remote capacity using technology. And there's oftentimes just some confusion when people start talking about remote support because they think remote support is the technology itself. And remote support is really a service and it's not a form of technology. Technology is just the tool that enables remote support to happen. It is not in and of itself a form of technology. The other thing that Susan and Christina mentioned just a moment ago is just the importance of doing any sort of technology enhanced support in a person-centered way. So understanding that any form of technology is going to look different from person to person, even if you're using the same pieces of tech. So just because you're using a piece of tech for one person and the same piece of tech for another person, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to apply that and use it in the same way. One second here, my video link is covering up my slides. All right, so the other thing we want to jump into is just really what SafeInHome does. So SafeInHome is not a remote support vendor like SafeInHome in that we don't have people who are receiving notifications and providing that type of remote support. What we do is we are a technology vendor. We integrate dozens, if not hundreds of different types of sensors and devices throughout a home environment to enable someone to live as independently as possible. So, pretty much any area within a home can have different forms of technology integrated throughout to support different outcomes that someone may have that they want to either do more independently or just may need some support throughout their day. So when we talk about this idea of enabling technology, remote support, and just the opportunity that technology can have in naturally supporting someone, those are all a little bit different. So the thing we start with, again, going back to that concept of being person-centered, is understanding what are the outcomes we want to support with technology, and then what is that going to look like for each person? And there's really three different ways that our technology can provide support for an individual. One being that remote support engagement. So we work directly with organizations and people who may be naturally supporting an individual, their family, other people, in their network who may be providing that support for them, to have that technology connect right to those support team members and notify them of different things that may be happening or not happening in that person's life. Has someone accessed their medication on time? Has someone left the stove on for an hour? Those things that would commonly be supported with someone in person, we want to know in real time if those things have happened or not happened. But we also see tech as a great tool from a natural support standpoint. And what we mean by that is really giving individuals the ability to not only control things in their home that they may not have been able to control otherwise. So think smart home kinds of applications, but also using tech as a tool to help prompt and redirect, an individual of a situation before someone has to engage from a remote support standpoint. And we're going to break down just a really quick example of what this looks like, because I only have a few minutes left, but we're going to talk about an individual that we support. His name's David. And one of the supports for David that was a concern for him living independently was cooking safely. So we put technology in place to know if David had started cooking. And the concern was if David left his stove on for an hour. Well, the first thing that his support team wanted to do is really use, again, that tech as a natural support. So the first thing that David's technology does is it engages with David directly. So it actually provides a prompt to David to remind him first to go and turn his stove off, right? And now he is empowered to go and take that action before anyone else knows about it and anyone else has to take an action. But the other thing is that David does have the backstop and the additional layer of support of a remote support team, both from some paid supports through his provider, as well as a natural support team through his family who is close by. So if David doesn't address that issue within 5 minutes, his paid support team is actually going to receive a notification from his technology to let them know David has left his stove on. He's been given the opportunity to manage this independently, and now they need to engage with David in a more direct way. And then he also has, again, that connection with his in-person team to come by if that's necessary. So if they are unable to reach David through, David uses two-way and audio and video communication with his remote support team. If they're unable to reach him via that method or via phone call, they're actually going to come by. He lives really close to his family as well. So they may actually be the first people to respond and come by. But again, this connection between staff and traditional or typical supports and the technology tools is really crucial to success. And so that really extends into a lot of different areas of life. Someone living safely, knowing who's coming and going from the home, helping someone complete daily activities and routines, making sure people are up in the morning. There's a lot of ways that technology can really expand to create the outcomes in ways to support an individual. And those outcomes, are pretty broad, both from, how can we serve someone more cost effectively and efficiently, but also create those opportunities for independence and really just provide that support when it's needed. And David has really been able to realize that for the first time in his life as well. And there's a lot of different tools to help bring information and data together. And the final thing I'll wrap up with is just the appreciation that, technology can really not only be that connector in real time, but it can also be a really valuable tool to help provide that data around the outcomes and goals you're trying to support for an individual. What I mean by that is, if, like in David's example, he's trying to cook it independently and safely, we now have reliable, accurate, timely information that we can in review of David's support plan to understand, is that technology a great way of supporting David? If he is leaving his stove on for an hour, how often are the prompts he's receiving able to give him the redirection he needs to actually go and handle that situation? How often is his staff having to now engage and provide that level of support, differently for David? And the tools that we provide, we actually put right in the hands of each individual's support team. So whether that's a family, whether that is a provider, whoever is going to be involved in providing that support, they need to be equipped with that information so that they can make those necessary adaptations and changes over time based on what is most necessary and what's appropriate. I'm going to skip ahead to one final thing, and that is just the importance of planning. So when we talk about technology, there's oftentimes a misconception that, technology is just going to be put in and everything's going to change overnight. But anytime technology is really implemented, there is a really thoughtful process that needs to go into that integration before it ever happens. So, we go through a very in-depth assessment process and recommendation process and work with providers and families on how is that going to really take shape for an individual before anything else changes. So this is something that is done in a very thoughtful and stepped manner. So here's our contact information at SafeInHome. I would encourage you to hop over and check out our website. We have a lot of great resources there, and I'm going to turn the mic back over.
Thanks, Jason. So Jason, if you could put your contact information in the chat as well, that would be great. There was one comment that was made about seeing data versus people's outcomes, and I think you shared some of that in your presentation. So I would encourage any of the participants to reach out to any one of us. We all have our own different data sets, so depending on what you want to learn more about, we can certainly share that with you. So now I'm going to turn it over to Gregg from KenCrest.
Thank you, Nathan. First up, let me say that I am a middle-aged white male with brown hair. I'm wearing a blue shirt with black framed glasses. I want to thank Mark for the invitation of KenCrest Service and myself to be a part of this tech summit. Before I get started with KenCrest, I just want to tell everybody a little bit about myself and how I got here. I've been in human services for the last 35 years. I've held various positions in different levels. This goes way back before there was even remote controls for TVs or cell phones or even video games, but it's been quite a while. I've always had a strong interest in technology ever since I can remember. I was the guy on your block that ran out and bought every piece of technology that came out because I had a habit. It was the fear of missing out syndrome back then. I remember buying my first Apple computer in 1976 and having to run out and buy the printer, the extra memory, everything like that. Another one of the first pieces I purchased of technology was back in 1984, and I'm sure a lot of you know what this is. Consider this one of the first pieces of AT, the clapper, where you can clap 2 times, you can clap 3 times, and something will happen for you. You turn a light on, turn a light off, what have you. Moving forward to 2015, this is a bit of a personal story. My mom, who was 80 years old, moved into an apartment from a very large house. And in my effort to try to make things easier for her, we put an Alexa in there. She lives in Florida. I live in Pennsylvania. So, I had to go there and put all this stuff up for her. We put an Alexa in for the automation of her lights, Bluetooth switches, voice activated music. She could do different things with her TV, turn it on. I set up some routines because she used to fall asleep with her TV on. So Alexa would automatically turn it off at 2 a.m. Fast forward, what I didn't realize at this time was I didn't expect to get a lot of calls when the technology went out. So that was really a lesson learned. You can do too much for an 80-year-old. To this day, she's 89 and is still using, the technology that was set up. She now has a smartphone, which she wants to know why it beeps sometimes and doesn't beep other times. So we try to explain that as another challenge. But anyway, that's my interest in technology. I came to KenCrest about 3 months ago after creating a really successful assistive technology program at another provider of human services. We set up an assistive technology department that really worked with a lot of seniors and also the intellectual disabilities population to try to create more safety and independence for those individuals. Our vision at KenCrest is really simple. The vision is that all persons have the opportunity to explore and acquire technology to make their dreams come true. You heard a quote earlier in the intro, which I was going to use, but I'm going to say it again anyway. Some people use technology to make things easier. Others use it to make things possible. And really, that is the premise of why we do the work that we do. At KenCrest, our supports and technology span across several different programs. We use we work within supported independent living, using some of the SafeInHome technology that you just heard about. We use it in employment and vocational service, and we also use technology in our community homes. All of this is designed to promote independence and safety. Some of the types of technology we used are reminders from a voice assistant, wake up and audio alarms, routines in the Alexa, doing certain things every day at the same time, such as an alarm clock or a reminder to take medications. We use different apps from the Google Play Store and the App Store. We automate lights and switches that are controlled by voice and or motion. Ring cameras, voice assistants, communication apps and devices, Ring doorbells, automated medication dispensers, iPads, and the list goes on and on and on. One of the things that we just started experimenting with is applets. These applets are little pieces of software that let one device speak to another device. For instance, if you turn your lights on, it also gives you a reminder to turn them off. So these applets are starting to come about, and we're experimenting with them to do different things. Another item is pressure sensor bed mats and floor mats. And in our employment program, we're using task reminders through an app that's on a mobile device. Our process in getting somebody started is pretty straightforward. It starts with an interest or a referral from an individual or a support staff member, then followed by a check-in with the identified person and their team. If there's an interest and we move forward, we set up an evaluation, another check-in after the evaluation to review the findings and suggestions moving forward from the evaluation. That findings will identify a device and a desired outcome. After that's approved and we move forward, we deal with the procurement of the device, which means actually purchasing the device. Either the device can be purchased through one of the waivers, it can be a private pay, out-of-pocket expense, and then sometimes we do have grants available for individuals to get the equipment. Following the procurement, we do installation and training of the individual and or care team. And after the implementation, we do try to collect some data to see if it's being used and what the efficacy of the device is. We're also doing follow-ups at different increments of time to make sure that the device isn't abandoned and is still being used. We're always looking for new technology and new devices. A lot of these things are trialed by our staff and individuals, but also talking about some technology for employees currently to make their lives easier. If you were in breakout room 5, you heard a couple of our DSPs talk about how the technology being used by individuals is also helping them in ways that we didn't expect. So we're starting some discussions around technology for our staff. As of today, we've supported 169 people in 113 different residences using over 200 devices. 7 of the individuals are using the SafeInHome devices, being supported with SafeInHome devices, and in the field, we have 45 of those devices under SafeInHome. KenCrest, we use a credentialing methodology. Here at KenCrest, we maintain a technology first credential, which is basically a seal of good housekeeping and competence in finding and applying varied ways of technology that promote the independence of the individuals we serve. In addition, we currently have 50 of our employees who are certified and trained to lead, implement, and understand technology. Kind of rushed a little bit for time, but I want to close with a really brief story. This story was told to me and I found it really interesting, and it's an example how remote supports can be used by an individual to help attain a goal. So it's a story about a male who had a goal, a health goal, to lose 20 pounds, living in a supported independent environment. So the male had a goal to lose the 20 pounds. The staff went shopping for him, helped him pick the right foods. He was put on a meal plan. And at the end of a few weeks, we found that he wasn't losing weight. So after some investigations, a lot of conversations, we found out that this individual was going and raiding the refrigerator nightly between 1 and 3 a.m. So through the help of some remote supports and technology, a motion sensor was put in his kitchen that would only be active during the hours of 12 midnight till 6 a.m. And anytime there was motion in his apartment, it kind of said, hey, he's going to the refrigerator. So the motion sensor would trigger a voice recording that said, hey, please, if you must eat, make a healthy choice. And I can tell you that what I was told is at the end of several weeks later, he did achieve his goal. We can't say for sure that that was the reason, but at the same time, we can say that, that was one of the supports remotely that did work for him. So I want to thank everybody for the opportunity. Again, Mark, thank you for inviting us. And if anybody would like more information about, KenCrest, what we do and how we do it related to remote supports or smart home technology, please reach out. Thanks, Nathan.
All right. Thanks, Greg. If you could put your contact information in the chat as well. Very, very smartly of my panelists, they have left me with 4 minutes left, which is good because I could talk for days. on technology and how it excites me and the work that we're doing at Keystone. So I will keep it brief for you. Our story goes back 5 years. That's when we made the decision to become a technology first provider. We've had parts of our leadership partake in the tech first shift credentialing. We've really focused not so much on how does Keystone become a technology first provider, but really how do we incorporate technology into a person-centered plan? And that's really for us where our growth and our success has come, is really from that person-centered plan meeting and knowing what things we can talk about during that meeting that might be an option for somebody of what's out there for technology, whether it is something that you can go to Best Buy and purchase, or whether it's something you would work with SafeInHome or with SimpliHome. So we focus on outcomes for a person, and those outcomes really relating to independence. We currently have over 200 people throughout Pennsylvania that are using technology in some form or fashion. That goes across 100 different locations. I think our current numbers are about 235 folks in 125 areas. And one of the biggest things that we've seen, and I'll end with this, is we're seeing folks move to true independence. People who are moving out of either their families' homes or out of a structured home that we run as an organization, and moving into their own apartments or their own homes. And they're doing that because of the technology that they've learned to use. And so they feel confident, they feel safe, and they're truly reaching an everyday life with what they're able to obtain for themselves. And we can still provide supports, but it doesn't have to be direct supports of a staff person. And that's truly one of the great things that we've been seeing through this. So with that, I will thank you all for your attendance for our panel. It was a pleasure to be able to speak with you. And I know I speak for all my panelists members that we greatly enjoyed the opportunity to talk with you about what we do and the successes that we've seen. And please continue to put questions for us in the chat. We will do our best to answer them, and I'll put my information in there as well. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you so much. As Chris just put in, it's like having a second brain. We really appreciate that. We appreciate you. I really want to thank you, Nathan, for being the coordinator and honchoing all these diverse and super expert people. I really want to thank Susan and Christina and Jason and Gregg and you, Nathan. The panel has really been fabulous and terrific.